Thank you. My name is Simon Sandoval Moshenberg. I'm also an attorney with the Legal Aid Justice Center in Falls Church. All right. We're going to talk now about some of the red flags. The concept of red flags is essentially, if any of these red flags apply to your case, it's super extra important to make sure that you have representation from an attorney in going forward. These are the red flags are essentially saying, these are the cases that you should not try to do yourself. Right? You need to make sure you've got an attorney going forward. All right. One red flag is prior contact with immigration. Essentially, anyone who's currently in deportation proceedings, or anyone who's ever been in deportation proceedings at any time in their life, anyone who's ever in the past applied for some form of immigration status, and that application was either denied or is still kind of pending and out there, these are folks who really need to talk to a qualified, experienced immigration attorney before applying to make sure that A, their sort of previous history doesn't impact their current application, and also B, that their current application doesn't impact their ability to obtain some sort of better, more permanent status. Again, with all of these red flags, you may still qualify. This is not to say that if you have any of these red flags, you're out. To the contrary, you may still qualify, but it's very important to speak with an attorney before applying. Another red flag, and this is a very important one, is criminal history. So applicants must, in order to qualify for deferred action, you must not have been convicted of either a felony offense or a significant misdemeanor, or 3 or more of any type of misdemeanors, whether it's significant or not. So what does it mean to be convicted of a crime? It doesn't mean that you actually spent even one night in jail, right? You might say to yourself, well, I had this thing, but they let me go with community service, and so I wasn't convicted. Not necessarily. Fines, probation, even a mandated period of good behavior, or, for example, mandatory alcohol education classes, those can all, and probably do count as convictions. So this isn't just about people who've been to jail. Any sort of adjudication raises a red flag. So the example, a very common example here is first offense DUI in Virginia is pretty much always punished by just mandatory alcohol education classes. That still counts as a conviction. Juvenile offenses, offenses that went forward in Virginia in what's called the Juvenile and Domestic Relations Court, may or may not count. USCIS is going to determine that on a case-by-case basis. So if you've got a juvenile conviction, it's very important to work with an attorney on your case. All right, so they say that if you've got a significant misdemeanor, you're out. What in the world is a significant misdemeanor? Well, this is the list that they've published of what they consider to be a significant misdemeanor. So domestic violence, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation. Burglary, that is to say breaking and entering in order to steal, is a significant misdemeanor. Note, however, that simple larceny, that is to say theft, shoplifting, may not be a significant misdemeanor in certain cases. Unlawful possession or use of a firearm, drug distribution or trafficking, if there's any drug-related charges on your record, even if it's just simple possession, we strongly advise that you work with an attorney on your application. Don't try to do it yourself. It's a big one, DUI, driving under the influence. Driving under the influence, USCIS is considering for these purposes to be a significant misdemeanor. So if you have a driving under the influence conviction for which your only sentence was mandatory alcohol education classes, you might not qualify, and so it's really important to work with an attorney before you apply. And then any other misdemeanor in which you were sentenced to more than 90 days of custody. Those are all significant misdemeanors in the eyes of the government. All right, so if you've ever been arrested, whatever happened with that arrest, whether you were convicted, found not guilty, they dropped the charges, anything, it's very important to get what's called a certified disposition. So how do you get that? You just go to the clerk's office of the court in which the arrest went forward and you ask for a certified disposition. Bring some cash to cover the copying court costs. They'll give it to you then and there. If it's out of state, if you're in another state, just call the clerk's office to find out how to get a certified disposition. If you're not sure, if you don't recall really when or whether or where you were arrested, you can send away to the FBI for a background check, and that will help to determine when or whether you've been arrested. I really recommend consulting an attorney if you think there's even a chance that you've ever been arrested, but you're not sure whether it counts as an arrest or not. So this is what a certified disposition looks like. The point is, it's got this stamp right there, okay? If it's got that stamp, it's a certified disposition. If it doesn't have that stamp, you need to go to the court and get a copy with that stamp on it. This is from the Virginia General District Courts, obviously. Other states will look different. All right, so what's another red flag that indicates that if this is your case, you really need to work with an attorney on your case? Is breaks in continuous presence. That is to say, if you've ever left the country and come back during the 5-year required period. This doesn't mean that if you left the country and came back, you're out. In fact, as long as the absence was what they call brief, casual, and innocent, you can still qualify. But this is a case where you really want to work with an attorney on it. There's no bright line rule defining that, right? It's not a number of days where I can just tell you if you were out of the country for less than that, you're good. If you're out of the country for more than that, you're bad. There's no specific number of days like that. They're going to take an overall sort of holistic look at your absence, why you were absent from the country, etc. So all the more reason why you really need to work with an attorney if you've ever essentially left the country and come back. This is true whether the departure from the country was, quote, legal or illegal. One thing is that the reason you left the country was not, it's important that it not be because you were deported. So how are you going to prove how long you were out from the country? Let's say you were out for 2 months for some reason. Well, if you took a plane, obviously you get the plane tickets and you get the entry documents. If it was, walking across the border, get a document from here in the US from immediately before you left, one from immediately after you got back, to sort of establish the endpoints on either end of your absence. And really consult an immigration attorney before applying in this case. And the final red flag that I want to talk about is prior fraud or misrepresentation. Essentially, if you've ever told immigration authorities anything that wasn't true on a previous immigration application, even if the immigration authorities never discovered that fraud, right? Even if you essentially got away with it, old files are being dusted off at this point. So it's very important in that case to work with an attorney to determine whether it's worth it or not to apply in this instance. That's true also even if the fraud was not successful. A lot of people think, well, I entered into this fake marriage, but they didn't give me the green card anyway, so, it doesn't count. No, fraud is fraud whether it was successful or unsuccessful, and so it's very important in these cases to work with an attorney. This is especially true if your original entry into the United States was using a false name or an identity, if you came in on someone else's passport, that is to say. Now, for a lot of the folks who came here at the age of 2, 3 years old, even 10 years old, maybe you didn't have control of the passport, you don't know how you came in. And as we're doing these applications, we're discovering a lot of people who are learning unpleasant and uncomfortable truths about their own immigration history that they didn't know before. So especially if you came in with documents at a very young age, it's important to have what I call an uncomfortable conversation with your parents, because you need to know whether you came in on your own documents or frankly someone else's. Again, this is not to say you'll be disqualified, but it's very important to work with an attorney. For example, if one of your parents ever filed a false immigration application and they listed you as a dependent beneficiary, it's important to know that and understand that and talk with an attorney about the consequences of that. So it's important to have a really serious and frank conversation with your parents about your own and your parents' immigration history before you apply. All right, so those are the red flags. If any of them apply, please, please, please contact an attorney, speak with an attorney before applying. All right, so given all of this, why bother, right? Is it even worth it to apply? It sounds like a big hassle. So, subject to the preceding red flags warning, that is to say, if none of those red flags that I listed apply to you, we say yes, it is worth it to apply. Applying allows people to come out of the shadows, live your lives, participate in your communities, work a better job, study, advance in your career, etc. The benefits, that is to say, you get work authorization, you get a driver's license, freedom from fear of deportation, outweigh the risks. We consider that simply driving around without having this status is more dangerous than applying for this status. Am I putting myself at risk if I apply? Again, subject to the preceding red flags warnings. If none of the preceding red flags apply to you, we say no. We don't think you're putting yourself at any great risk by applying. USCIS has said that they will, if they deny your case, if they grant your case, great, you're in. If they deny your case, they're going to refer it for deportation proceedings only if they're denying you because of a criminal offense, because of fraud, or some sort of threat to national security. That being said, of course, it is true that the next president could change this program. Nobody knows that for sure. So, so the two things you can do to really protect yourself. One is, if any of the red flags that I talked about apply, do consult with an attorney before filing. And the second thing, and most important thing, is don't lie on your application. If you're not 100% certain as to what the correct answer to a question is, and you guess and you get it wrong, that's a lie, right? So if you have any doubts whatsoever, consult with an attorney before filing. All right, am I putting my family at risk by applying? I don't want to get legal status for myself if it means that both of my parents are going to get deported. That's not worth it. No, the answer is no. Applying does not put your parents at risk of being deported. The information that they obtain through this program is not going to be used to round up the parents of Dreamers. Even USCIS has said that even if they transmit a case to ICE for deportation proceedings, they're not going to transmit any information about the applicant's parents. Again, of course, this is all subject to politics. The next president could change the program. Nobody can predict that for sure. And so we come to the next slide. Will the next president cancel this program? Leaving me no better than I started. Am I spending a bunch of money and doing a bunch of stuff for 2 years, and then I'm going to build my hopes up, and then at the end of 2 years this is all going to go away, and I'm going to be exactly where I am today, right? No one wants that. The answer is, frankly, we have no way to know. But politically speaking, in terms of, kind of looking into a political crystal ball, the more people who apply, the harder it is for them to cancel this program in the future. If 1.5 million people apply, it's a lot harder to take it away from them than if only 150,000 apply. Also, we have examples from history, right? I mean, temporary protected status is still being renewed for Salvadorans and Hondurans. The earthquake and the hurricanes were well over a decade ago, and those folks who applied back then are still getting their statuses renewed to this day. It's been through the Bush administration, it's been through the Obama administration. Those Salvadorans and Hondurans still have TPS to this day. Also, we can say that the success of this program will help the push for a real DREAM Act, right? To the contrary, the failure of this program, if no one signs up for it, will probably be fatal to our political struggles for a real DREAM Act, right? I mean, if no one signs up for it, there goes the wind out of the sails of the DREAM Act movement. But the most important thing, as Father Tuck said, is to keep up the struggle for a real DREAM Act. We think that deferred action is a great first step. It's really important in the lives of the people who are going to qualify for it. It's not a path to citizenship, right? It doesn't give the full recognition that our communities deserve and demand. So we need to keep up the political struggle for a real DREAM Act. All right, so what should I bring to my appointment with an attorney? We have a 2-page handout here. I hope everyone got it. At the top it says Deferred Action Application Checklist. I'm not going to go through every element here, but this is essentially a repetition of what we've been talking about. When you have an appointment with an attorney, make sure you bring all of the documents that are listed on this list. If you don't bring them, essentially the attorney's going to say, well, go away and come back when you got all the documents. This is the second page. If anyone doesn't have a copy of this handout, it'll be available again at the end of it. And then finally, where can I get individual legal help? All right, I'm going to do this. I'm excited, but you know what? I realize that this is important and the stakes are high, and I think it's worth it for me to get a lawyer. These are the various different organizations that are non-profit organizations. None of these are for-profit. These are all non-profit community organizations that are providing legal assistance. Here's the phone numbers and how much they're charging. There's an organization called Ayuda, which it's a 202 phone number, but they're here in Northern Virginia. Hogar Immigrant Services, Just Neighbors, Northern Virginia Family Service. Those are 4 organizations that have immigration attorneys on staff that are ready and waiting to represent you in this process for a really very small fee.
Excuse me, is there a list of out here?
I'm going to leave this slide up. This is the last slide. I'll leave it up so you'll have plenty of time to copy it down. There's going to be an AILA clinic. AILA is the American Immigration Lawyers Association. There's going to be a clinic this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. in Springfield. So that's a drop-in clinic. You don't need to make a reservation. You just show up, and there will be immigration lawyers there ready to help you with your application. We at the Legal Aid Justice Center are going to be providing pro se assistance. These are for people who do not have any of the red flags and have decided that they want to file their own application and just have questions for a lawyer. You can come to our offices next Friday at 10 a.m. Not this Friday, but next Friday. We're not going to be representing people. We're not going to be helping people fill out applications. But for folks who are decided that they don't have any red flags at all and so they can do it themselves, feel free to drop by our offices next Friday at 10 a.m. and we can chat with a lawyer. In the district in Maryland, there are also organizations that are doing it. Carecen, Ayuda has a Tacoma Park office as well. You don't have to be, you can go to across the river if you want, if you find it more convenient. Casa de Maryland. For folks who are coming from further down in the state, in Richmond, there's a phone number you can call. And then if you want to hire a private attorney, you're welcome to do that. Please make sure it is an attorney who is an immigration attorney. Not any old attorney knows anything about immigration. So the directory of attorneys that are members of the American Immigration Lawyers Association is available at that website. So I'm going to keep this slide up so that you can copy it down at your leisure. Again, the three of us are going to be available for a little bit of time afterwards. We're not going to be filling out applications right now. We're not going to be representing people, but right now. But for people who have very specific kind of detailed questions about your own case and want a chance to chat one-on-one, this will be a great opportunity to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.